You're listening to This Week in No Code plus AI, with weekly episodes sharing the latest advancements of AI, plus exclusive interviews, founders using these tools. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to This Week in No Code plus AI. I'm your host, JJ, and we are back at it with another slate of interviews after a short summer break. Stoked to be back. We have an awesome interview today with a product mastermind talking about his AI first startup that just makes so much sense. But before we get into that interview, I want to share with you something new that I created for this podcast. It's called My Insider Pass. I'm going to put the QR code on screen here and the link in bio. If you tap that link and join our Insider Pass for this podcast, you're going to become an insider for this podcast. And I will send you details about episodes before they go live, opportunities to submit questions to our upcoming guests, any kind of digital downloads that we give away from the episode. I'll share it with you there. Generally, it's just a place to be more engaged with me in the podcast and to get everything before it comes out. So if you love this show, I would love your support by clicking on the link in the bio or by taking a picture of the QR code. Join our Insider Pass. It is a really awesome company that I made. I love what we have going on here. And if you want to make your own Insider Pass, let me know. But until then, let's get on with the show. And here I am with Alan, the CEO of Liminary. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You have a wonderful background. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit more about your background and how you got to finding this new AI-focused company of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background has mostly been in product management in tech. So over a decade, God, wow. I've been doing product management at companies ranging in size from big tech like Google to much smaller startups. But really the through line across all of that has been working a lot on productivity tools in particular. So I like the space as a user. And so it's been really fun to be on the PM side, actually helping to build out some of these products. So I was a PM at Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides here in New York for a while. I was a PM at a company called Better Mortgage for a little while. And there I was actually working on one of their massive internal productivity tools. And then for 5 years before starting Liminary, I was VP of product at Bubble, which is a no-code web application creator, also here. So with Bubble, got to be part of the startup journey. Joined when they were 15 people and then grew with them. When I left, they were around 150 people. So I really love the space. It's been a ton of fun, but also, to be honest, it began to feel a little repetitive, right? The same sorts of products were coming out, the same kind of features are being built in those products. And that all changed with GenAI, of course. So when GenAI came onto the scene in a big way, that's what got me thinking much more about like, okay, this is a pretty new technology. We should be able to do something pretty cool and unique with it in the productivity tool landscape. And so that got me thinking about different kinds of products and eventually got really excited about this particular problem space that Liminary is in. Met my co-founder, Sarah, who is also really in this problem space. And we decided to have a go at it. So we officially got started right around a year ago.
Congrats. That is awesome. It takes a lot of conviction to leave a full-time job and to start a new company, especially with young kids at home. What was that conviction for you of like, I think we really got something here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to admit, I'm naturally more of a skeptical person, I would say, when it comes to new ideas. So for me, something about this idea just personally resonated more than other ideas that I thought about in the past. And then, of course, like it's one thing to resonate in my own head, but you have to go out and like talk to potential users and get more people's feedback. And we did that. And turns out the idea was kind of resonating with them as well. And I would say, honestly, there's, on the one hand, talking to people about the idea itself, then kind of more fundamental than that is talking to people about the problem you're trying to solve. And, people can have different opinions and feedback about a particular idea, but when we were asking people about the problem we were interested in, everybody almost unanimously was like, yeah, I have that problem. I have that problem. Doesn't mean it's an easy problem to solve, but at least everybody kind of like hears it. And within like a couple sentences, they're like, oh yeah, this is something I experience as well. So that was very affirming.
What was the problem that they were all experiencing?
Yeah. So the problem is kind of twofold, but more broadly, it's the problem of like knowledge management or just how funky and onerous it is. So on the one hand, part of the problem is that, especially for the kind of knowledge work that happens today, people just need to absorb so much information, right? And the information is coming from all different kinds of sources and often comes in different formats, right? It's like articles and files and podcasts and YouTube videos and all different kinds of formats. And naturally, people want to try to wrangle it all. People want to take notes as they go. People want to hold on to, choice quotes or data points that they have for later. And the sort of astounding thing is that even with all the productivity tools that came before, like there still wasn't a like clear logical winner in terms of a way to keep track of all this information, right? Like everybody kind of develops their own system. Interestingly, when we talk to a lot of users, like especially a lot of like researchers, a lot of people were almost embarrassed to tell us about what they do because they would preface it with being like, I'm sure there's a better way. Don't judge me by this, but I kind of just keep a running Google Doc where I copy and paste links, I take bullets and kind of hope for the best later. Fair. But that was the majority answer we got, which is crazy. Um, then there's like kind of the downstream problem, which is cool. You've absorbed all this information, you read it all, but now you actually need to use it, right? You need to do something with the knowledge. And when you sit down to write a memo or write an executive summary or whatnot, you often have to go on this scavenger hunt through your notes, through all the stuff you've read, because you have a clear idea in your brain. It's like, okay, I remember there was this like one data point on blah, where was it? Right. And then you have to like go and like find the needle on the haystack. Uh, so we were really intrigued by this particular problem. It also seemed like one where Gen AI could make a very big difference in solving the problem. And so that was sort of the starting point of Liminary.
Is it like a AI memory for you, like where you're tracking all of your things in a centralized repo that is essentially AI is helping you organize and return to?
Exactly. Yeah. So we call it the ultimate knowledge recall tool. So that's exactly it. Like it's easy to save. We kind of create the knowledge graph for you.
Hmm.
So you don't need to do a ton of really manual like tagging or like organizing or stuff like that. And we use the magic of AI to really help you find your information, your knowledge a lot more easily.
Very cool. How are you able to add memories to that? Like is it just like you forward an email or like what is the ways that we can add memories to that right now?
Yeah. So the first version, we built it as a Chrome extension. So it's kind of a tool that's always at your fingertips. It's really easy to like click a button to say what you're looking at. And over time, we'll build out more ways to efficiently get any knowledge that's useful to you into Liminary. We're also thinking about a desktop app as well, so that it can work across all the different applications you have on the computer.
I know like one of the things that I love about code is let's say you have a GitHub repo and you could take that GitHub repo and just bring it with you wherever, like if you're in different IDEs or whatever.
Mhm.
I could see this almost happening of like you have your memory and you can
Mhm.
bring it with you into different chat GPT or like GPT conversations or just
Mhm.
different knowledge sources. Like, do you think
Yep.
in the future you'd be able to connect to your liminary memory like that to like act as and another, way to like access your knowledge?
Yeah. Yes, that is absolutely what we intend to do. Actually, I'd love to like just show you the product live.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I'm starting to think of all
Cool.
these ideas of like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, uh, knowledge is everything, and data is everything, and
Mhm.
our own data is unique to ourselves, and we want to
Mhm.
be able to bring this with us wherever we go.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do right now with all the different knowledge sources we maintain. I
Right.
personally use like Apple Notes and all this other kind of stuff, and so
Mhm.
yeah, it's not an efficient mechanism at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Let me show you kind of this sort of automatic recall or this automatic surfacing of your own knowledge in action here. So I'll pull up my screen here. So first I'll kind of like set the scene for you. This is our web portal for Liminary. And in my account, you can see that I've just been saving a bunch of different things over time. And we have the ability to create what are called collections, just a really lightweight organizing unit. You can really quickly save stuff in. This is not mandatory to do, actually, because we can create the knowledge graph for you behind the scenes regardless. But just for purpose of illustration, you'll see here that I've been doing a little bit of research on this topic of Mexico and supply chains. And you'll see that I saved 14 different sources to it. These 14 links or sources, range from white papers that different consultancies or think tanks have published. It includes news articles. Obviously this is kind of a hot topic these days, supply chains and kind of the global economy. So I've done some amount of research here. Now let's say that I'm a consultant and I need to sit down and write some kind of a report on the topic. I'll open up the Liminary side panel here. You'll see, you'll kind of get a hint of some of our other functionality where you can chat with whatever you're looking at. You can even select if you want to chat with your library or chat with a current page. But I'll show you this recall tab. I'll just keep it open here on the side for a sec. But let's say I'm sitting down and let's try to do a white paper on nearshoring U.S. manufacturing Mexico. And I'll start laying out the maybe the structure or an outline of this. So MN, U.S. firms, manufacturing plants, Mexico, disadvantage of nearshoring. Maybe I'll say like impacts, recent tariff news. So on the right here, you'll notice that after I started getting going, Liminary proactively searched through my knowledge base and it's showing me different snippets of my knowledge that are most relevant to what I'm doing on the screen. So I did not need to write a prompt. I did not need to type in a search query. This is purely Liminary working alongside me, seeing what's happening on the screen and what's changing on the screen. And it's using all these context clues to figure out, okay, Alan is probably trying to write this paper, this white paper on this topic, which, just so happens he's saved a bunch of stuff about. So over here, you can see like, here is an article I saved from Deloitte and it's labeled ask. This is actually a question I asked AI about that Deloitte white paper. Here is one of the articles I saved. Here's the entire collection. And I think if I click in here, you can see, here are 14 articles in a nice stack. Here are different notes I've taken, including highlighted quotes. And here's like a nice AI generated summary. So with all this stuff in the side panel, and this will like live refresh, by the way, as I continue to document, I basically have my knowledge at my fingertips. For certain ones of these cards, like this, AI question and answer, I can easily copy the contents and just like paste it in my document as I want. So this is the innovative value that we saw is now possible because of GenAI, right? Like without GenAI, this would have been very hard to do like 4 years ago. But this is what we're really excited about, right? Like plenty of tools let you save articles. Plenty of tools now even let you kind of like highlight in context or like chat with AI about it. But this part where it's almost like your knowledge finds you when you need it, this is what we're really, really excited about.
Yeah, I love that you just essentially start typing and it starts showing relevant things on the right-hand side of the panel. It's a really clean look for that Chrome extension. It makes a lot of sense. My next thought is, okay, but how do I like summarize those 15 collections into like how I want to extract the information that I want to talk about it and like start to add to that white paper? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So this is what we just saw is the like V1, I'll call it. We're in an open beta right now. So all of this is live in open beta. You do have the ability to actually, let me try to trigger it here. You can actually chat with different collections you have. This one on Mexico isn't quite showing up here, but I could chat with my library and say like, you know, what are some of the sheet points be aware of for manufacturers thinking about for it, right? You can even say like, I'm writing a white paper or
Sure.
an executive audience, right? So this is, you know, the more familiar UX that users might have. Could
Yeah.
be a little bit of a bug there. The idea is that you can chat, you can ask questions, and Liminary will help you uh, draw on your knowledge as well.
Do you know what this is reminding me of? Or I
Mhm.
don't know if you're thinking about going there with it, but almost like the tab feature in Cursor, where if you're writing the doc and you could
Yes,
tab and it can start to like autocomplete, kind of thing for you based on your
exactly.
knowledge base.
Yep, that's something on our roadmap that we'd love to build. It's almost like it happens in Gmail too, right? Like
Yeah.
as you type in Gmail, the autocomplete.
Yeah.
We want to build that, but with your facts.
With your facts, your
Yeah.
knowledge, everything that you collected, that could be very helpful. Um, Yeah, and you could take this in so many ways. Once you have this information, then from there you build the ecosystem around it to just let that ecosystem tap into it. But it
Mhm.
could be used in so many ways, which is really exciting.
Exactly. So we're super excited about like the vision of this. There's so many fun directions it can go and valuable things to build with it. Um, so we're excited.
When you put on your PM hat for a second,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that you could do with this. There's a ton of potential.
Yeah.
How do you prioritize that next thing that you do?
Yeah. This is, this is the multi-million dollar question, right? So for us, we we do see this vision of a knowledge tool that is useful for a lot of different types of knowledge workers, in our case, right? At the same time, we are very keenly aware that the more focused you are on a particular audience, the more you can like understand their pain points, their user journeys, and like build towards that. So we are like us personally, we are trying to find a good point on that spectrum or with that balance, that we think helps us grow in the short term, but also keeps us on track for the vision, right? So our first, primary target audience is researchers outside of academia.
Okay.
So imagine like think tank researchers, corporate R&D teams,
Hmm.
market research. So we've been talking to a lot of folks like that, getting a sense of, you know, what kinds of research are you reading? Like, what do you do with that research? What are the kinds of questions you need or want to answer?
Hmm.
What do your work outputs look like? So on and so on. Um, and like knowing all that information from users and their behavior, we can incorporate those ideas into our roadmap.
Yeah. Um, that was my next question is this is such a horizontal product. It could be used by so many different users and so many different use cases. How do you, niche down on that one? In your case, it's researchers, but like,
Mhm.
how did you find that subgroup of folks that's like, this makes the most sense to launch with? Was there any kind of conviction of like, they're, commonly writing this kind of paper and our V1 can help us in this way? Or what were you thinking about in terms of that go to market?
Yeah. This wasn't like a major question for us at the very beginning, as you can imagine. So we first started off doing research with like a lot of different types of users, right? All knowledge workers are different flavors, but lots of different jobs within that umbrella. And we were starting from a point of being interested in, this problem space of like, how could a Gen AI tool help with some of the knowledge challenges that still exist today? So as we were talking to more and more users, we began pattern matching, essentially. And we just heard from so many different types of users that they were going through roughly the same sort of workflow in their jobs as it relates to knowledge. As we kept going, we began honing in to researchers, for a few different reasons, right? Like one reason is just that their day-to-day workflow does kind of what we just saw and described, like on repeat, right? They're just doing this at such high volume. They're reading a lot of research at high volume. And their whole job is to really like synthesize all of it, figure out like what is the main takeaway, what is the main recommendation, points, and then writing something with, right? Often you write output. That's a key thing for us as well. I don't know. So that was like one of the biggest reasons we honed in on researchers. Some of our other audiences we are pushing on are, VC investors, consultants, students in college or graduate studies. And you kind of begin to see the pattern there, like all these roles need to absorb a lot of information and ultimately like usually write something or produce some kind of like artifact.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's just so many ways you can add more knowledge to this. Even just like, interviews that you had with your team member, like video calls in that way.
Mhm.
Sort of those things where it's just like you want this memory to go, like ChatGPT conversations you had, and then you came to this realization, now add that to my memory to like context of how I'm thinking about these like there's so many ways you can add to this that really adds so much value over time. And then you almost create like an MD file of like, here's how I like to operate, or here's how I'm thinking kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um,
Totally.
that's it. Yeah.
Our mission is to be able to save knowledge in any format that it comes
Yeah.
in. So today we can save web pages.
Hmm.
So that includes different kinds of social media sites like Reddit. It also,
Hmm.
by the way, interestingly, includes your chats with LLMs. So like one thing I've done is, I've had like a long chat with ChatGPT or
Yeah.
Claude. I can save that chat
Hmm.
into Liminary, and Liminary can later like incorporate that into my knowledge base and recall
Right.
from it. Um,
Is like through a public URL that you need to expose it that way, or do you just download it, then upload it in that way?
you don't need to download and upload, no. So like as long as you're looking at it on the screen, if
Yeah.
you hit the save button in Liminary, we can save it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like you're in within the session or something like that.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's really exciting in that way. And then you can use this knowledge base, beyond research, but to power, like personal agents that you have, or, things like that, where it's just like, hey, I need working knowledge of how you want to operate. This could be that brain,
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
powering in many ways.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, we're already working with YouTube videos as well, PDFs, meeting notes or meeting transcripts is like
Yeah.
definitely high up on the list to build next.
Yeah.
But even in the future, like imagine Liminary being able to understand a project management dashboard or like a data analytics, BI tool dashboard,
Yeah.
right? Like really, like we're pretty excited about all this potential.
Yeah. It's like you're in the very early stages of training a best friend, or like an external version of your
Hmm.
memory,
Hmm.
in many ways, and then you could take it in so many different directions
Hmm.
with like a limited team. Like, what are those like next milestones that you're looking to hit? Of, all right, we have the MVP live, now we're looking to get this amount of traction from researchers in this way. And then,
Hmm.
like, how do you look at, progressing through this journey? I think a lot of our listeners are, small teams, first time founders, makers, etc.,
Hmm.
trying to figure out, all right, I have this product. Now, how do I think about growing this product and like those milestones along the way?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we just started our open beta a week ago, week and a half ago. And
Congrats.
thank you. Yeah, that was an exciting milestone. And of course, like we are like, getting user feedback, responding to user feedback, like adjusting the roadmap. Um, so the next like milestone from I guess like joint product and go to market side is definitely, like a general launch, right? And we have like various projects we want to bring up to it. We're also now doing just a bigger push on go to market and um, trying all different tactics to reach out to our target audience. But to your question, really, I mean, in spite of coming from a background in product management, like I am very much in the camp that the hard part these days is really the go to market side, right? Especially because so many people can build products right now. And honestly, this started even before the Gen AI vibe coding wave. Um, there's just so much more entrepreneurial energy out there. So many people who have like really good ideas, building software products. So the name of the game these days is really like, how do you grow? How do you get attention? How do you communicate about your value and what you're trying to do for users? Um, and so yeah, it's all about experimenting with different tactics and different like clever ideas.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. I think if you use vibe coding as an example, there are so many different vibe coding platforms, but there's like a couple that really stand out. And maybe not because that's the best tech or anything, but because they built a brand, they
Yep.
built, an audience and distribution. And that's, and so, yeah, with so many people being able to make things, now it's less about being able to make it and more about sharing and telling and distribution and getting that into the hands of those people, which is a very interesting time. I mean, for so long, us makers that were just like, if we could just get the money to make the thing, we could find success. And now it's like, okay, making the thing is almost a given. How are you going to market and sell it? Which is very interesting. And to your point, a really hard thing to do with so much noise of this LLM can now do this and this video model can now do this.
Yeah.
You're competing against so much. I know that this is also $1 million question, but like, how do you stand out, especially like us small makers, the 1-person team, 3-person, 5-person? Like, how do we stand out? Is it, an incredible marketing video? Is it an incredible demo? Is it, getting your inside beta users to like really be loud about it?
Mhm.
You have any thoughts?
Yeah. Certainly not all the answers, or else we'd be in a very different spot already with Liminary. But I've learned a lot over like even the past few months doing this. So I guess first off, if you are building a PLG tool, meaning a tool that anybody out there can visit your website, sign up for an account, use it, pay for it, right? If you're building that kind of tool, just like word of mouth growth is like very good, right? Like you want to have a product that's delightful and or solves a real problem for these users. And you want people to like love it and spread it, right? Like that is by far like one of the most important things for that kind of. Now putting that aside, I think what I've learned is this is like a primary place where you as a founder or creator like should be and have a lot of room to be clever, essentially, right? It's almost like any of the typical channels you can quickly think of if you are not from the go-to-market world. So like, social media, SEO, like, like influencer managers, right? Those still work to some degree, but they're also very saturated, right? So at this point, like if you're starting from like no social media presence, even on your personal side, you have a lot of work to do in order to build like social media as a channel for your product, right? That's why I do think, founders who already have some kind of genuine following, even if it's like nothing, you don't have like bajillions of followers, but like if you have a genuine following and you're building something for roughly that audience, like you're already at a really strong head start, right? Could be on X, could be on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. Aside from that, I would say, we're basically like having fun, but also like, quite seriously doing the brainstorm, trying to come up with ideas that feel not like totally out of left field, but like feel maybe more like creative, right? Like ideas that are creative and that are somehow resonant with our product, right? Um, like, just talk a little about resonance. One idea that we've talked about a lot is the more traditional like social media strategy. Within social media, we've thought, okay, well, maybe TikTok is something to try out because, it's one of the hot channels right now, but also like you don't see a ton of people advertising software on TikTok yet. Caveat, I am not on TikTok, so take all this with a grain of salt. So we thought about that and, we still want to give it a try at some point, but it's the kind of idea where it's like, is this actually kind of resonant with our product, our audience, right? Like researchers don't feel like the audience that's most on TikTok. There might be an interesting demographic play where if you want to go for like entry level people who are like junior in their careers,
Sure.
their 20s, maybe. But so anyway, that's an idea that didn't have a lot of resonance, but we've had other ideas. Like we have a feature where you can publish a collection of research that you've already gathered. And when you publish it, it has a public facing URL. Anybody can visit it and they can chat with your collection. Not only that, but as the creator of it, you can set a system prompt. So you can make it respond in certain ways, sometimes kind of funny or clever
Cool.
ways even. So that's a growth tactic that we're like pretty keen to lean into more because we think it's like pretty unique to us. It's like much more resonant with our use case and our types of users and so on.
Yeah, I see the utility very clearly. Now it's about sharing that with others and letting other people find that for themselves.
Mhm.
Are you guys looking at raising money? And if so, like what are those milestones that you might want to hit before you try to raise, or like when do you think about raising as a founder?
Yeah. We went the route of raising a pre-seed round from almost the very beginning. And it's not announced publicly yet, so I won't go into too many more details, but we went that route because we already had a fair amount of call validation and research done around the problem. We felt that we had pretty solid credentials as a team. And we found investors who resonated with all that and were going to take the bet.
So that was pre-product. You were able to do that pre-seed.
Mhm. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is hard to do, but
it is.
it's
Yeah.
nice to give you that, that time to go off and build it with the proper resources.
Right. Absolutely. But I don't think that's even the most common path these days. Like, I think typically most people do build a product or an MVP of one. They get some initial users or design partners, and kind of have like iterated on the product a little bit more before raising the first round.
Yeah, I know that when I was trying to raise a round, the question they'd always ask is like, "What's your revenue? What's your revenue? And how is that growing?" And without revenue, it was really hard to raise money.
Mhm.
And it's also like, well, if I had revenue, maybe I wouldn't need to raise money. So it's kind of like,
Mhm.
I'm sure there's many other ways, but
Mhm.
it's a very hard thing to raise money, and it takes a lot of time, almost like as much time as it takes to build your company, and it could sidetrack you. So
Mhm.
it's cool in the sense that you guys raised a pre-seed before the product. So then that way you could focus fully on the product.
Mhm.
Um, Now I guess like looking forward into the, coming year or two,
Mhm.
what does that growth look like for you? And like where do you see the company growing or expanding into?
Yeah. So we actually view our company as kind of a combination of both a research lab, if you will, as well as productization farm. And I think this is like one of the really fun things about, this day and age, with like AI. So for us, like we have a pretty kick-ass team, and um, like one thing that the team focuses on is continuing to like push the envelope on this like technical innovation, right? The technical innovation we're focusing on is really all about that automatic recall. Like how do we power it? How do we improve it? So on and so on, right? At the same time, like, research for research's sake is a very different realm, but we want to create an awesome product that solves people's problems, that's valuable to users based on that technology. So you can kind of imagine like it's not that we have like two roadmaps. We kind of have like two labels on the roadmap, if there are two tags on the roadmap where we want to keep pushing on the technology and then incorporating it into the product, not to mention all the like great roadmap ideas on how to make a product stickier, like easier to onboard onto, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're doing with kind of the product development side. And then on the go-to-market side, like it's obviously just pushed to grow in terms of usage, in terms of active usage. Um, I think there's just from talking to investors, even like when we're not fundraising, there's a lot going on in the AI space, right? It's like a very busy space. A lot is changing very quickly, which is maybe both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that there's so much excitement, right? Like everybody wants to hear about what we're building. Everybody wants to try it. Maybe a little bit of a curse is that like there are no benchmarks, so to speak, right? Where the benchmarks are kind of like weird in a way. So there are some companies that obviously like take off like a rocket ship in like, 10 million in ARR in like 2 days, right? Like crazy stories like that. Um, but like, what are really the benchmarks that investors are expecting from different rounds? I think it's a little bit up in the air from what we can tell.
And I think it's unfair to the 99% of founders that don't get 100 million in the first year kind of thing. Like,
Mhm.
you have a couple of hockey stick companies
Mhm.
or like unicorns that have exploded. And that has kind of put the expectations, I think, very high for the market of like, if you're not doing that, are you, a thing?
Yeah.
And it's like, those are, rare exceptions. And it's hard for, I think, us as founders to, match up to that in that way.
Yeah. I would say it's heartening that, like when I chat with investors, it's not like they're saying like, oh, you haven't gotten 100 million ARR. Like, what's wrong with you? Like something's wrong or you're failing. Like nobody's like really holding us to the craziest benchmarks.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like everybody knows those crazy stories,
Yeah.
right? And everybody's kind of like, okay, like trying to dig in, trying to understand like, A, is there substance behind those stories? But then B, like, how did they achieve it? Like what can we
Yeah.
learn? And then how does that influence expectations for all the other factors?
It's funny, you said automatic recall, and that was something that I hadn't never really thought about before. But as soon as you said it, it makes so much sense of how important that is going to be becoming in the coming years of just having access to your information from a wearables perspective, from building AI agents, so many different perspectives. Having that recall function just right is going to be very important to get the data that you need when you need it.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
That's exactly what we're excited about. And I mean, like, it's interesting to see, what the LLMs are doing, right? The foundation model companies. Like they've obviously built memory into their products, right? Like ChatGPT remembers stuff about your past chats, right? Obviously ChatGPT and the like can also like go out onto the internet now and they're trained on the internet, right? But there's kind of that like interesting middle layer almost, right? It's like you as a user, you know so much like from your experience, from your work, from your history. That's not the entire internet, nor is it just the files that you uploaded to ChatGPT, right? And it's like that body of knowledge, which is obviously very valuable for you, for tools, broadly. And yet, like, it's awfully hard to tap into that level of knowledge today. And that's what we're tackling.
Yeah. I know some of my colleagues, they're like, I've been working with this GPT for so long and it knows me so well. I wish I could just export it and bring it somewhere else and like help me, with that context, that kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
that's just one of the many, many things that I think your product can solve. And it's really cool to see as we work to wrap up here. And let's talk a little bit about like where you think this industry is going in the next couple of years. Not just, personal productivity, but like AI generally, and maybe the technology that we'll get our hands on going forward. Do you have any speculation or big bets or anything that you would want to call out?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm in the camp where I think really the challenge now is much more on like adoption and like how do you not even just productize these things, but like roll this technology and roll these products out to more people, right? And it's very easy for us, working in tech to be very up to speed, right, about everything. But, we've been talking to a lot of users who are not in tech, right? Like actually some industries which are definitely not known to be early adopters of tech. And it's like a fascinating dichotomy. Like I would not say we are very far on the adoption curve, LLMs, when you think about the entire like economy, right? So I think there are definitely a lot of people touching on that. And I think, we'll continue making progress on rolling out and adoption. But I think that's going to take much longer. I think a lot of companies have been very excited to try AI and AI products. I think a lot of companies have been disappointed by some of what they piloted early on. But, at the same time they're disappointed, they also kind of like still want to keep trying, right? Because I think everybody has the intuition that like, this is useful, this is important. We just need to figure out like the exact right shape. There are these two scholars at Princeton who have put out a lot of writing, but I think their blog is now called AI as Normal Technology. And I very much resonate with everything they say, where it's like AI is definitely a major technical advancement. Doesn't mean it won't have very big long-term impacts, but at least for the next few years, AI has to go through the same types of steps as other new tech, which are like, okay, how do you even get this out to people? Like how do you make this useful for? Um, so that's kind of my biggest thing, and it's really fun to be in the space right now because there is so much energy. So people are trying things. The technology is still advancing, but I don't know. I'm more in the camp of like we need to figure out how to actually make it really usable and helpful for individual users.
For those that want to give your product a try, can they get access to it? What are the steps
Mhm.
for them?
Totally. So our website is liminary.io. Liminary is spelled like preliminary. And yeah, we're in an open beta right now. So anybody can just visit our site and sign up for an account. Please share feedback with us if you give it a try. Our email is support@liminary.io.
Cool. I know I'm going to be going and signing up right after this. Thank you for coming on and talking about it. Really eye-opening to me in many different ways of just like something I wasn't thinking about. But as soon as you explained it to me, I was like, this makes so much sense and really matches with where I think things are going to go. Great catching up with you again. Best of luck with this company, and I can't wait to continue to use it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.